Imagine this. You close your eyes in your warm, modern bed and open them somewhere else entirely. No soft pillows, no glow of a bedside lamp, no hum of traffic or the distant bark of a dog, just cold air, a musty smell, and silence, the kind of silence that presses on your chest. You've somehow woken up in the Middle Ages. There's no phone, no glass window. The world is dark, slow, and strangely alive with unfamiliar textures, sounds, and fears. Welcome to Boring History for Sleep, where we explore what it might truly feel like to wake up in the distant past. In this calm and immersive bedtime documentary, you'll gently experience life as it was hundreds of years ago. No swords, no knights in shining armor, just the grinding, quiet reality of daily existence. The filth, the fear, the monotony, and the small human comforts that still linger. Let your breathing slow, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more strange journeys into forgotten corners of history. Now, let's open your eyes to a world long gone. Your body shifts, confused. The surface beneath you is lumpy. Something scratches your neck. You open your eyes. But there's no ceiling fan, no skylight, just a sagging wooden beam above, black with age and soot. Dust dances in a shaft of pale light. It smells like mold and animal hair. And the blanket wrapped around you isn't a blanket at all, just an old woolen sheet. You're lying on a straw-stuffed mattress, if you can even call it that. The straw rustles beneath you, uneven and poking through its fabric shell. There's a damp spot near your hip, cold and sticky. You hope it's just spilled ale, or rain, or anything but what it might actually be. Your fingers run over the floor. Not carpet, not even wood. Dirt hard-packed, dry, cracked. The walls are rough stone, and there's a strange chill in the air, as if the room has never been warm in its entire life. There's no sound of machinery, no radio, no distant hum of life outside, just a distant cluck, a bleating goat, the rattle of iron on wood. You are not dreaming, or if you are, it's a very dirty, very detailed one. A small square of light filters in through what looks like a shuttered hole in the wall. Not glass, just open air and maybe a thin cloth, fluttering gently. You hear someone cough, a harsh wet sound. Someone drops a pot and curses, and the words sound familiar, but not quite right. You sit up slowly, your head pounds, your neck itches. Your mouth tastes sour. There's no toothbrush, no sink, no mirror to check if you look as terrible as you feel, but you're certain you do. Somewhere nearby, a rooster crows. Morning has come, but not the kind, you've woken up in medieval times. You stand up slowly, the floor freezing beneath your bare feet. The air is damp, thick with the smell of stale smoke, wet stone, and something earthy, like compost and livestock. You feel the chill in your bones, not just on your skin. Your breath fogs in front of you. This isn't a castle. It's not even what you'd call a house. It's a hut, really. A single room with stone walls and a sagging wooden roof above. There's a low fire pit in the center, its embers faintly glowing from last night. Smoke hangs in the air, curling toward a hole in the ceiling. The only chimney. There are no separate rooms, just one shared space, dark and close. To one side, a pile of straw and blankets, more bedding. Next to it, a woven basket, half full of wilted turnips and some crusts of coarse brown bread. A worn wooden stool leans against the wall, and in one corner, a chamber pot. You don't want to look too closely at that. Your clothes are nearby. Rough woolen tunic, scratchy linen, stiff leather shoes that feel like they've been soaked and dried 100 times. Everything smells faintly of smoke and animal fat. There's no privacy here, no bathroom, no sink, just you, and the quiet sounds of others waking, coughs, the rustle of hay, the clatter of a wooden spoon. Someone, maybe a woman in a coarse apron, eyes you suspiciously as she stirs a pot over the embers. You don't recognize her. She doesn't say a word. She just frowns, mutters something in an accent that sounds halfway familiar and halfway ancient, and keeps stirring. The mixture smells like cabbage, onions, and maybe old socks. It's breakfast time. Maybe your stomach growls, but you hesitate. This isn't a bar. There's no menu, no choice. You might get a piece of bread, maybe a spoonful of mushy oats, if you're lucky. That's it. Outside, you can hear a cart creaking down a muddy road. Someone shouts to move the pigs. A dog barks once, then falls silent. This is your life now. No running water, no electricity, no privacy, just the cold, the dirt, and the silence of a world where survival is a full-time job. And it's barely dawn. As the fire crackles faintly, you start to wonder, how does one freshen up in a world without soap, plumbing, or toothbrushes? The short answer, you don't. Not really. There's no bathroom to stumble into, no sink to splash your face, no toothpaste, no deodorant, no shower, hot or cold. In this new medieval world, hygiene is a luxury few can afford, and even fewer understand. You glance around. In the corner, someone dunks a cloth into a wooden bucket of cloudy water. She wipes her face, her arms, her neck. A sort of sponge bath, but the cloth is grimy, and the water smells faintly of mildew. You wonder how many people have used it before her. There's a pile of other clothes in a basket nearby, stiff with age and overuse. You tentatively check under your arms. The linen undershirt you're wearing smells like it's been through several lifetimes, and you're sweating already. Not from heat, but from anxiety. But there's nowhere to clean yourself. No soap. At best, maybe you de-rub a damp cloth over your face and hands, and hope it is enough. As for brushing your teeth, medieval people sometimes chewed twigs or used a cloth to rub away debris. A salt scrub might help with breath, but you're out of luck today. Your mouth tastes like dried grain and sleep. There's no minty freshness coming your way. Your hair is tangled, oily, and itching. No shampoo, no conditioner. Perhaps some lye soap if you're lucky and rich, but most likely you'll be tying it back with a leather cord or a scrap of cloth. Lice, common. Dandruff, constant. Baths, rare, maybe once or twice a year if you're peasant class. And yet, no one around you seems to notice. They all smell. They all look disheveled. It's normal here. In fact, being too clean, too fragrant, might make people suspicious. Cleanliness was often associated with vanity, sin, or even witchcraft. A bit of dirt was honest. Filth meant you were working. And work was survival. You sit still, unsure whether to touch anything, unsure how to begin your day. But outside, the village is waking. You hear the clatter of hooves, the clang of iron, the sharp bleat of a goat. The world doesn't care if you've bathed. It's time to move. After a long morning of raking fields and carrying water, your stomach begins to grumble. You glance around, wondering when, or even if people eat. There's no breakfast as you once knew it. No kitchen stocked with eggs, toast, or tea. No cupboard, no fridge. In fact, you realize with a quiet shiver, there is barely enough food for anyone. You re-invited to sit on a log near a smoky hearth, where a woman stirs a large iron pot. She ladles something thick into a wooden bowl and hands it to you. It's warm, grayish, and vaguely porridge-like. The taste, earthy, bland, barely salted. As the dull stew sits in your stomach, you become increasingly aware of your suffering. The floor is packed mud. There's no chimney, just a smoke hole in the roof, letting a thin trail escape into the damp sky. The air is thick with the scent of soot, sweat, livestock, and something vaguely unpleasant you can't quite place. A child scratches at red, raw skin. Lice are simply part of life. Rats dart near the edges of the room, bold and accustomed to sharing space with humans. There's no soap, no toothbrush, no indoor toilet. People relieve themselves in a corner bucket, which is emptied into the street each morning, or sometimes not at all. Illness hovers like a shadow. A racking cough in the corner might be just a cold, or something worse. Plague, dysentery. You find yourself breathing shallowly, instinctively retreating into the safety of your own mind. But there is no escape. This is life here. Sickness isn't rare. It's expected. And strangely, no one complains, because they've never known anything else. The crow of a rooster jolts you from a shallow, uneasy sleep. You're not alone in waking. The whole household is already stirring, and it's still barely light outside. Privacy doesn't exist here. Everyone sleeps in the same room, from the youngest toddler to the oldest grandparent. If you're lucky, you had a bit of straw to cushion your back. If not, the cold earth has left you stiff and aching. There's no time to stretch or snooze. Someone tosses a bucket of cold water over the dying embers in the hearth and starts grinding oats for pot. You re-handed a hunk of bread that's gone hard overnight. You gnaw it slowly, hoping your teeth don't crack. The bread might have sawdust, old rye, or even dirt in it. You don't ask. You're told to help gather firewood. There's no central heating here, no insulation. If you want warmth, you have to earn it. The morning air is sharp, and your breath comes out in ghostly puffs. Frost clings to the sparse thatch of the roof. Everyone moves with purpose, not because they're energetic, but because if they don't, they might not survive the season. You're already exhausted, and the day hasn't even begun. As the sky brightens from grey to pale blue, you step outside into the heart of your new world, a medieval village. It's not grand, not the bustling stone cities of Hollywood tailies. Instead, it's small, humble, and earthy in every sense of the word. The air smells strongly of damp straw, firewood, smoke, manure, and something sour you can't quite name. The dirt path beneath your feet is soft from recent rain and littered with straw and waste. Chickens scurry past, pecking at the mud. A pig snorts near a dung heap. Dogs bark in the distance. Thin, mangy, but alert. You pass a row of squat timber-framed houses. Their walls are made of wattle and daub, wooden strips woven like a basket, covered in mud and dung plaster. The roofs are thatched, patched in places, leaking in others. Smoke trickles from a hole or chimney if the family inside can afford fuel to burn. Most of the villagers are already busy. A boy drives a herd of sheep down the lane. A girl crouches over a bucket, scrubbing clothes in cold, murky water. An older woman tends a pot hanging over a smoky fire, stirring something that smells of boiled turnip and wild onion. You begin to realize that nearly every sound is human or animal. There are no engines, no hum of electricity, just the rustle of straw, the shuffle of bare feet on wood, the bleating of livestock, and the distant toll of a church bell, marking the hour, calling the faithful. The people around you wear clothing that's rough and practical. Woolen tunics, linen underclothes, leather belts, cloaks patched and restitched dozens of times. Their hands are calloused, their skin windburned, and children run barefoot, mud-caked, their laughter mixing with the lowing of oxen. You try to blend in, but you feel out of place. Foreign, overwhelmed. The village isn't cruel, just indifferent. Everyone is busy surviving, tending to their animals, their fires, their fields. No one has time to ask who you are. There's a central well, surrounded by buckets and wooden ladles. That's your water source. No taps, no filters, just cold, open-air water drawn by hand and carried in sloshing pails. To your right, the local alewife sets up a small stall outside her hut, a crude stand with clay jugs filled with weak, homemade beer. It's safer to drink than water, most days. A man limps by with a staff, greeting her in a thick dialect. You catch only fragments of the words, familiar in shape, but strange in form. The church looms quietly at the village edge, stone, weathered, with a small graveyard beside it. The doors creak open. Inside, prayers echo softly. You'll return there soon, perhaps for comfort, or perhaps because in this world, the church is the only place to make sense of things. But for now, you keep walking. Every direction is a new mystery, a new hardship, a new wonder, and somehow, this strange place already feels like it might be home, if you can survive it. As the first full light of day spills across the village, there is no sleeping in. The world around you has already begun to labor, and in this medieval life, there's no such thing as idleness, at least not without consequence. You begin to notice how deeply integrated everyone is into the rhythm of work. There is no separation between home and labor. The home is the workplace. The land is your livelihood, your hands, your tools, and the weather determine whether you eat next week or go hungry. She places a wooden rake into your hands and points toward a patch of land behind a hedge. You're unsure what's being asked, but the direction is clear enough. Help or don't eat. You follow a few others to a small, uneven field where cabbages and leeks grow in narrow rows. The soil is dark and damp, but not rich. These aren't tidy plots with modern symmetry. They're rugged, hand-dug spaces surrounded by low, twig fences to keep animals out. Nearby, a man sharpens a wooden plow blade, his ox waiting patiently beside him. Children scurry past, carrying bundles of sticks or buckets of water from the well. One boy is stacking fresh-cut peat, soon to be dried for burning. You realize everyone has a job. Even the elderly spin wool or grind oats. Even the smallest children gather eggs, scare off crows, or haul small bundles. There are no weekends, no paid leave, no lazy mornings. In fact, the very idea of leisure feels foreign here, indulgent. Even holy days are filled with preparation. Food to preserve, animals to tend, thatched roofs to patch before winter returns. You start raking, slowly at first. The handle is rough and worn from countless hands before yours. The work is repetitive, but calming in its way. There is no rush, only persistence, and a quiet understanding that survival comes not from speed, but from constancy. Your back begins to ache, your fingers grow sore, and a sweat breaks across your brow despite the chill. You catch glimpses of others working nearby, bent at the waist, sleeves rolled up, faces hidden beneath wool hoods or scarves. Occasionally, someone pauses to drink from a shared flask or nibble on a hunk of barley bread. Meals are small, utilitarian, fuel, not luxury. And still, there's an odd peace in it all. The air smells of damp earth and smoke, and the repetitive scrape of the rake blends with the low hum of daily village life. Chickens clucking, water sloshing in pails, hooves on mud. There's no noise pollution here, no phones ringing, no engines, no electric buzz, just the steady rhythm of human effort and animal presence. The deep, meditative soundscape of a world that doesn't know electricity, industry, or convenience. For a moment, you stop to breathe. A crow caws in the distance. The wind brushes past your ears, cool and grassy. You're tired already, but there's no room for that. You still haven't fetched water, or chopped kindling, or helped to repair that broken fence, but you'll get there, because in this medieval life, the sun has barely risen, and the day is just beginning. Once the meager breakfast is over, it's straight to work. There are no weekends, no coffee breaks, and certainly no sick days. Everyone, no matter their age or ability, must contribute. You're sent to the fields with a dull wooden yoke over your shoulders, balancing 2 buckets of water fetched from a muddy stream nearly a mile away. The buckets are heavy, the straps bite into your skin, but no one offers sympathy, because everyone is carrying something. If it's spring or summer, you might be helping to sow barley or wheat, using crude wooden tools and your bare hands. If it's autumn, you'll be part of the grueling harvest, and if it's winter, the work doesn't stop. You'll be collecting firewood, mending roofs, or patching clothing worn down to threads. The labor is endless, even children work. Chasing birds from the fields, herding goats, picking nettles to be used in soups. You're constantly bent over, knees in the dirt, hands blistered from repetitive motions. There's no sense of personal advancement. You'll never get rich, you'll never own the land. You're working so that you, your family, and your lord's granary make it through the next frost. You feel the weight of centuries pressing down on your shoulders, and you realize this life has been the same for generations. No reward, no retirement, just the hope of surviving another year. As the sun rises higher, the tolling of a distant church bell breaks the rhythm of the day. Time in medieval life isn't tracked by clocks, but by the sun, the seasons, and the church. Religion isn't just a part of life, it is life. The church oversees marriage, birth, and death. It governs morality, schedules, and even calendars. Today is a saintess feast day. Not that you fully understand who the saint was, but it means a slightly different meal and perhaps an extra mass at the small stone church nearby. You make your way there, past crumbling gravestones and through an iron gate. Inside, it's dark, cool, and musty. Flickering candlelight illuminates a roughly carved altar. You kneel on cold stone. The priest chants in Latin, a language you don't speak, but it doesn't matter. The rhythm is familiar. The incense makes your head swim. God is everywhere. So are demons, spirits, and curses. A sick cow might mean a neighbor hexed you. A bad harvest could mean God's punishment. You sleep with charms under your pillow and hang dried herbs in your home to keep evil at bay. There's no clear line between faith and fear. Pilgrimages, relics, and ritual dominate your spiritual life. Even the weather is interpreted as divine mood. A sunny day, a blessing, a flood, a warning, and though the church offers hope of heaven, it also reminds you constantly of hell. In graphic, fiery detail painted on wooden panels, tapestries, and whispered in hushed tones after someone dies unexpectedly. For you, religion isn't about comfort, it's about survival. Eventually, your clothes start to smell. Not that they were fresh to begin with. In the medieval world, laundry isn't done with bright detergent, warm dryers, or even soap as you know it. It's a grueling, infrequent chore, mostly handled by women, often near a stream or in a communal washtub. Water is fetched in heavy wooden buckets. There is no running tap, no warm rinse. You're handed a coarse linen shirt to wash, stiff with sweat, straw, and soot. Someone tosses you a lump of ash and lye soap. It's harsh on your hands and stings your eyes, but it's all they have. You scrub the garment over a wooden board, pounding it with a flat wooden paddle. The water is frigid. Your knuckles turn red. After an hour of work, the shirt looks less brown, maybe. Drying the clothes means hanging them in the open air, weighed down by stones or stretched on bushes. Rain might undo it all. Wind might carry them off. Of course, many people simply don't wash their clothes much. Undergarments, worn next to the skin, might be washed weekly. Outer garments, maybe seasonally if at all. Cleanliness isn't associated with health or virtue yet. Bathing too much is even frowned upon in some periods, thought to open your pores to disease. Still, some try to stay fresh in their own way, sprinkling rosewater, carrying herbs, or sewing lavender into the hem of a tunic. Laundry day, for all its labor, is also a small social occasion. Gossip is exchanged as women scrub together. Jokes are made. Children splash nearby. For a fleeting moment, it feels less like a burden and more like life's rhythm. Hunger strikes in the late afternoon. The sun is beginning to dip behind the treetops, and your stomach groans with the raw, empty ache of a day spent laboring. You wander back toward the village, hoping for food, but quickly realize that dinner in medieval times is no feast. It's fuel, plain and simple. The main staple, pottage. It's a thick, unseasoned stew made from whatever the household has on hand. Today, it's a bubbling grayish mash of barley, turnips, and maybe a wilted cabbage leaf. There's no salt. It's far too expensive. Spices are a luxury reserved for the nobility. Meat, only if someone has recently slaughtered a pig, or if small game like rabbit or pigeon was caught. But for you, tonight, it's just pot. You sit near the hearth, watching as a bent old woman stirs the pot with a long wooden spoon. She'll ladle some into a rough earthen bowl, passing it your way. There are no forks. You eat with a wooden spoon, or sometimes just bread. A coarse, blackened lump, made with ground oats, or rye. If you're lucky, the bread isn't riddled with grit from the millstone. A jug of ale is passed around, not the strong, frothy kind from taverns in modern movies, but a weak, sour brew made at home, because water isn't always safe to drink. The ale is flat, slightly cloudy, and tastes like wet. Hey, still, it quenches your thirst. You glance around the smoky room. Everyone is quiet. Eating is a serious matter, not something to linger over. The fire crackles. A dog scratches at the floorboards. Somewhere outside, a crow caws into the coming night. This is the biggest meal of the day, and it's still far from satisfying. Your belly feels half full, your mouth dry from chewing dense, grainy bread. And tomorrow, it will be the same. The sun has dipped below the horizon, and darkness spreads like a slow tide across the village. In the Middle Ages, nighttime wasn't simply an absence of light. It was a force all its own. The kind of darkness that swallows the path ahead, that makes trees seem alive and every noise outside your cottage door feel like danger. Inside the home, the hearth is the only source of light and warmth. A single candle might be burning, but wax is expensive, and most peasants can't afford to waste it. Instead, they rely on rushlights, reeds dipped in animal fat, which burn with a sputtering, smoky flame and fill the air with an acrid, greasy smell. Not ideal for relaxing. The cold seeps in quickly, even in summer. Medieval cottages were not insulated. Gaps between wooden beams or waterlando walls let in wind, insects, and every sound of the night. In winter, it's worse. You can see your breath as you huddle under coarse wool blankets or share a bed with others for warmth. As you try to sleep, your ears stay alert. Wolves, once common in much of Europe, still roam the forests. There are no police, no alarm systems, just your door bar and the hope that bandits or outlaws stay away. Every creak of timber, every gust through the thatch, feels ominous. Sleep, when it comes, isn't the uninterrupted rest you know today. People often woke for an hour or two in the middle of the night, known as first sleep and second sleep, to stoke the fire, pray, or tend to the animals. Lying there, wrapped in rough fabric, listening to the night breathe and move, you begin to realize, in the medieval world, even rest was a kind of labor, a battle between the cold, the dark, and your weary, aching body. Morning arrives, not with a soft chime or alarm, but with the gradual gray of dawn creeping in through cracks in the shuttered window. The rooster's crow is loud, persistent, and entirely You're stiff from sleep, curled like a question mark beneath a blanket that's damp with your own breath. Your stomach growls, not the polite, subtle, sort of modern hunger, but an emptiness that feels like it reaches into your spine. In the Middle Ages, hunger was a near constant companion, especially for peasants and laborers. A bad harvest, too many mouths to feed, or simply being poor could mean that every morning began with nothing more than hope. If there's bread, it's probably coarse and dark, made from rye or barley, heavy stuff, prone to mold. White bread was a luxury for the wealthy. You might also get a weak ale, since water isn't always safe, and perhaps a bit of onion, or some soft cheese if you're lucky. But luck is rare. Often, people started the day with little or nothing, working first and hoping to eat later, and what's available might be shared among an entire household. Children, grandparents, parents, all scraping by on a communal loaf. Breakfast is not a leisurely ritual. There are no cafes, no bacon and eggs, no idle time over steaming mugs, just a cold bite of yesterday's bread, the ache of unsatisfied hunger, and the knowledge that your body will burn more energy today than it consumes. And so, you stand, you stretch, you swallow what little you can, and you get back to the labor that rules your waking life. Cold, tired, and empty. By now, you've grown used to the rhythm of your surroundings, the way the thatch roof droops under its own weight, the scent of mud and smoke mingling in the air, the chatter of hens and children as background noise. You step outside and take in the village. If it can be called that, more a cluster of dwellings than a town. The place is tight-knit, modest, and deeply interconnected. Everyone knows everyone, not by choice, but by necessity. In a time without fast travel or mass migration, people were often born, lived, and died within just a few miles of their home. The homes around you are made of wattle and daub, wooden strips covered with a plaster of clay, straw, and dung. Roofs are thatched, doors creak, windows, if they exist at all, are simple holes with shutters, not glass. Walls breathe cold air in winter, and hold too much heat in summer. Privacy doesn't really exist, only shared space and shared survival. As you walk past the bakeress hut, a soot-stained outbuilding where bread is fired weekly, you pass the smithy, where iron tools clink and hiss in the forge. There's a tanner's pit that stinks beyond belief, a reminder that leather doesn't come neatly stitched and perfumed. Children run barefoot. A woman pours wastewater into the central ditch. Someone's goat bleats from under a lean-to. This is your world now. Life inside a medieval village is both intimate and suffocating. You are never truly alone, and never truly free. But there's safety in numbers, and when wolves howl from the woods beyond, the closeness feels like armor. You've become a thread in a tapestry, a face in the fog of history. And now, the day continues. As the daylight begins to fade, you notice the woods beyond the village seem to darken earlier than the sky above. The forest is both feared and respected. It is not just a backdrop, it is a boundary between civilization and chaos. You are warned not to venture far, but curiosity tugs at you. You step cautiously toward the tree line. The soil soft underfoot, twigs snap, birds cry overhead. The smell is rich, damp leaves, moss, and old wood. Every sound feels amplified here. Every movement could be a predator, or a poacher. In medieval times, the forest was both a lifeline and a threat. It held deer, berries, firewood, mushrooms, essential things, but not freely available. Much of it belonged to the local lord. Hunting as deer could get you fined, mutilated, or even executed. Still, hunger often drove peasants to take risks. Outlaws and bandits also used the woods as shelter. If you were exiled or fleeing justice, the forest was your hiding place. But survival, there was no fairy tale. Wolves were a real threat. So were bears in some parts of Europe. Most frightening of all was simply getting lost, with no compass, no maps, only stories to guide you. Superstition thickened the trees. People believed in spirits and witches who lived among the roots and hollows. Strange noises at night weren't just animals. They were omens, portents, warnings. You don't go far, just enough to feel the cool breath of the canopy and sense the line between life and legend. Then, with caution, you turn back toward the glow of the hearths, where humans gather and tales are told in hushed tones. The forest will always be there, like the unconscious mind of the medieval world, deep, unknowable, and never truly tamed. As you settle back into the relative safety of the village, a subtle tension lingers in the air, a kind of quiet watchfulness. Life in a medieval village wasn't peaceful for long. You quickly learn that fear of sudden violence was ever present, not just from invading armies or rival lords, but from bandits, raiders, or even feuding neighbors. The people here have no police force, no emergency line to call. Protection is a local, communal effort. At night, gates are closed, livestock is brought inside wooden pens, and lookouts may take turns watching for movement in the dark. Children are told stories, not just to frighten them, but to teach caution. Tales of marauders on horseback who set fire to homes, or thieves who slink in under moonlight to steal food and daughters. These aren't just myths. Villagers were raided for grain, animals, and captives. When war came to a region, peasants were often the first to suffer. Their fields trampled, their homes burned, their safety shattered. Defense meant improvisation. Some villagers had bows, others makeshift spears. Stronger villagers may have had wooden palisades or even a nearby fortified manor. But in many places, defense was symbolic. A few sharpened stakes, a village bell to ring an alarm, and the hope that attackers would move on to easier prey. When violence struck, it was quick and devastating. Crops gone, homes destroyed, lives lost. All in a matter of minutes. Recovery could take seasons, or never come at all. Even in quiet times, everyone remembered the danger. They lived close to the earth, but also close to fear. Always aware that peace was temporary, and vigilance was survival. As twilight settles in once again, you begin to notice something deeper than the physical hardships. Something invisible but powerful. It's the air of belief, of dread, and hope that pervades every corner of medieval life. The world you've woken up in is governed not just by lords and harvests, but by superstition. The people here believe the world is filled with unseen forces. Spirits linger in the woods, saints watch from above, and devils whisper at night. Illness is not just an infection. It might be the result of a curse, or divine punishment. A spoiled crop may be blamed on a fairy Esanga or the wandering eye of a witch. Folk charms and protective symbols are everywhere. Small leather pouches filled with herbs, chicken bones, or sacred words are worn around the neck. Children are taught to avoid certain crossroads after dark. Women whisper prayers when drawing water from the well, lest something dark be waiting at the bottom. The church is the center of spiritual life, but it's not the only source of belief. Pagan echoes still exist. In bonfires, in midsummer rituals, in the way people plant their crops by the phases of the moon. Christianity blends with older customs in quiet ways. Crosses carved over doors, offerings of bread left in the fields, whispers of ancient names in the wind. And then there's fear. Fear of sin, of eternal damnation, of purgatory. A bad harvest might be punishment for a villager's unconfessed wrong. A deformed child might be seen as the mark of divine displeasure. To your modern mind it might feel overwhelming, even irrational. But to them, it's the only way to make sense of a harsh, unpredictable world. In a place without science, without safety nets, faith and superstition are survival strategies of the soul. You begin to understand that in medieval times, the mind didn't separate the spiritual from the physical. Life, death, sickness, and weather, all were touched by forces beyond human understanding. And as night deepens, you catch yourself whispering a little prayer, just in case. You thought the discomforts of the medieval day were difficult. The work, the hunger, the smells. But night brings its own quiet challenges. And now that you're fully immersed in this world, the cold and dark of medieval night settles on you like a heavy, unwelcome cloak. There is no central heating, no glass insulation, no warm light switch to flick on. The fire in the hearth is now the only source of heat and comfort. A flickering, unpredictable presence that demands tending throughout the night. Let it go out, and the cold creeps in like a prowling animal. Houses are built from timber, mud, and thatch. Drafts seep through every gap in the walls. In wealthier homes, tapestries cover stone walls to block the chill. In poorer cottages, hay is stuffed into cracks, or old cloths hung from the rafters. Even then, you can feel the damp pushing in. People sleep fully clothed, often wearing their outer layers as they bundle together beneath shared wool blankets or animal skins. In large households, families might sleep in the same bed or in a tight corner near the fire to preserve body heat. You hear mice scurry in the thatch above your head. A dog snores somewhere nearby, sharing the warmth. Outside, the wind howls like a living creature, and in the pitch darkness, the countryside becomes a realm of mystery and fear. A few would dare step outside at this hour. Robbers, wolves, or worse, may be lurking in the dark. Time stretches, without clocks. There's only the instinctive rhythm of night and day. You lie there, listening to the breathing of those around you. trying to track the passage of time by the dwindling coals and the moonlight that slips faintly through the slats. It's in these long nights that people dream their strangest dreams, of saints and omens, of lost loved ones, of great beasts and angels. They believe that spirits visit during the witching hour, that the veil between worlds thins in the dark. Some keep knives or religious relics close by, not just for protection, but for peace of mind. It's a kind of sleep you're not used to. Broken, anxious, deep, and shallow all at once. A world where nightmares and reality are hard to separate. And yet, you're still here, in this strange and ancient place, wrapped in wool, surrounded by breathing bodies, and waiting for the light to return. You stir before the sun has fully risen. The fire has dwindled to ashes, your joints ache slightly from the cold, and the wool blanket clings damply to your skin. You can hear movement already. The rustle of straw, the soft groan of someone waking, the thud of feet hitting the packed dirt floor. Outside, the blackness of night has faded to a cool blue. A cock crows. A thin line of mist stretches across the fields like a ghostly sheet, and dew glistens on every blade of grass. Smoke begins to rise from chimneys as the first morning fires are kindled. It is a new day, though not so different from the last. There is no rush to check emails, no phone to charge, just the rhythm of survival. Bread must be broken and bowls must be filled. If you're lucky, there's a bit of leftover porridge or hard cheese to start the morning. Someone stirs the embers of the hearth, coaxing life back into the fire with patient hands. You step outside, pulling your cloak tight. The world is still quiet, but not silent. Birds are waking in the trees. A cart rattles in the distance. A woman is already drawing water from the village, well, her breath misting the air. Everything feels slower here, more grounded, but not easier. Life in the medieval world is a never-ending task list. Chores, maintenance, preparation, defense. You begin to understand why people measured their days not in hours, but in labors. Sunrise to sundown, task to task, season to season. Children will soon be shooed out of bed. Animals fed. Tools gathered. The cycle continues. Some will spend their day in the fields, others spinning wool or brewing ale. The blacksmith will heat his forge, and the priest will prepare for mass. And you, if you are still here, may find your place among them. Perhaps you'll carry firewood or help in the kitchen, or perhaps, in time, you'll learn the language, the customs, even the prayers. But for now, just breathe. Let the stillness of this world settle around you like the morning fog. You are not dreaming, or perhaps you still are. One foot in the past, one eye toward the present, and all of it, softly fading into the quiet hum of sleep. You're ushered into the heart of the castle-its kitchen, a cavernous stone room, filled with echoes and the ceaseless crackle of firewood. It smells of smoke, onions, salted fish, and wet straw. The ceiling is dark with soot. A vast hearth dominates one wall, where a pig slowly rotates on a spit, turned by a sweating boy with blistered hands. Cooks bustle. Young scullery maids with red chapped arms plunge their hands into tubs of murky water, scrubbing trenchers and wooden bowls. An old woman stirs a pot of pottage so thick it could stand up on its own. A tray of eel pie waits nearby, glistening with fat. You're offered a taste lukewarm, bland, but hearty. You chew slowly, eyes heavy from the warmth of the hearth. Outside, a dog barks. Inside, it's a symphony of clanks, coughs, and the gentle lull of fire. The smells are strong, the floor slippery with drippings, but somehow, it's peaceful. The next morning begins not with an alarm clock, but with the distant toll of church bells echoing across the fields. You follow the sound, feet crunching over frozen mud, toward a small stone chapel surrounded by ancient yews. Inside, it's dark and cool, the air thick with incense and candle smoke. Villagers kneel quietly, murmuring Latin prayers they don't fully understand. The priest's voice drones, calm and measured, as he reads from a manuscript in flickering candlelight. You sit on a cold wooden bench, back aching already, watching a mouse scurry across the stone floor. Stained glass filters the grey light, casting muted reds and blues across the walls. The prayers feel timeless, rhythmic, and strangely hypnotic. No rush, no noise, just sacred stillness and the distant caw of crows. One thing that doesn't change no matter where you go: discomfort. The clothes you're given, homespun tunics, woolen leggings, a scratchy cloak, feel like wearing a rug. The wool itches your neck, your wrists, even the backs of your knees. The layers are necessary against the cold, but they're heavy and damp with sweat by midday. Fastenings are simple: cords, pins, and buttons made of bone. There's no elastic, no zippers, no socks. You're always aware of what you're wearing, and taking anything off is a long ordeal, especially in winter when undressing means shivering in a drafty room with no heat. Still, after a while, your body adapts. You stop noticing the itch and start appreciating the warmth. But you'll never quite forget that first hour scratching, sweating, fumbling with laces and wishing for a hoodie. As night settles in, the village grows quiet, save for the muffled laughter around a hearth. You're invited in one of the few ways people pass cold. Candleless evenings is by gathering together to tell stories. There's no paper, no books, for most, just memory and mouths. An old man with missing teeth spins a tale of dragons on the moors. A girl with wide eyes adds her own bit of witches and the crying wind. You sip warm ale from a shared cup. Its taste earthy and strange. Sparks rise into the chimney as someone plays a mournful tune on a wooden flute. You sit back, surrounded by flickering shadows and sleepy smiles. For a moment, time slips away entirely. This could be 1100 or 1300, it doesn't matter. You feel safe, here warm, drowsy, and part of something ancient. Eventually, you lie down in the corner of a cottage on a straw mattress, stuffed with hay and a few stray insects. A woolen blanket, coarse but comforting, rests atop your chest. The air is cold, but you can hear the breathing of others nearby. A baby cries softly, then settles. Someone snores. A dog shifts beside the hearth. There is no light now, except the faint red glow of embers. Outside, the wind sings a lonely song. You can't see the stars, but you know they're just as they were when this world was all there was. Your eyelids grow heavier. You've learned how to eat, how to bow, how to light a candle, and how to walk in silence. You've learned how to listen. And in the stillness, wrapped in scratchy wool and medieval peace, you finally let go. Sleep comes like it always did in those days, slowly, simply, and without resistance. The first glimmers of morning light spill over the thatched rooftops, painting the sky in pale gold and cold mist. Your feet crunch against the frozen mud as you make your way toward the heart of the village, a market square. There is no pavement here, only packed earth, rutted and uneven from cartwheels and boot heels. You arrive just as the first traders begin to set up. A stout woman in a woolen shawl unrolls her cloth sack of parsnips, their white roots still frosted from the chill. Nearby, a fishmonger arranges yesterday's catch-dried, salted, slightly sour. The scent of smoked eel hangs thick in the air. It mixes with the smell of manure, burning peat, and distant bread ovens just beginning to stir. The market is more than commerce. It is life. It's where gossip spreads faster than any written letter. A lad sells eggsnon. Entirely Clenan shouts about a sheep lost in the moor. A hooded friar offers blessings in exchange for copper pennies. A toothless woman sharpens knives with a whetstone and mutters to herself, "You have no coin, only your presence." You watch, listen. Observe how everything here is earned, bargained for, and paid in sweat. Even something as simple as cabbage. As the market comes alive, a strange peace settles over you. There's no rush, no advertisements, just people surviving together. After some time wandering, nature calls, and, in the medieval world, responding to it is not a pleasant affair. You search for a privy, though you know that word now comes with dread. Behind a timbered barn, you find one crude structure, barely larger than a coffin, made of wood warped from rain. It leans slightly. Inside is a splintered bench with a single hole cut into it, perched over a dark, rank pit that bubbles faintly with rot. The stench hits you before you even touch the latch. There is no toilet paper. Instead, a bucket of moss, some damp cloth scraps, a brush made of bundled sticks. No flush, no soap, no dignity. You hold your breath, trying not to touch anything. This isn't a place to linger, just survive. But the horror doesn't end there. Waste is tossed from chamber pots onto the street with casual disregard. Gardlou, a woman cries from above, before emptying a pot of urine from a second-story window. You barely leap aside in time. The streets are a living river of grime, a mix of rainwater, dung, rotted food, and human waste. Rats scatter near the gutters. No one seems surprised. And yet, this is normal. Expected, part of the tapestry of life. Somehow, you begin to accept it too. You take a quiet walk along the edge of the village, where the homes thin out and the air feels slightly less foul. That's when you notice them. the people on the margins. A man stands alone near the head. His hair is wild, eyes distant, mouth open in a crooked smile. Children throw stones at him, laughing. He doesn't seem to mind. They call him the fool, the idiot. But he is tolerated. In this world, mental illness has no name, only shame. And then, the bell, clink, ... clink. The soft wooden chime grows louder as a figure approaches, wrapped head to toe in layers of linen and rough wool. The villagers scatter. This is a leper, or so they believe. The bell is his warning, his exile. He walks with a staff and lowered gaze, moving through the outskirts like a ghost. You watch him pass in silence. No one speaks. No one offers comfort. And yet just before he disappears over the hill, an old woman leaves a small loaf of black bread on the road behind him. A simple, human gesture. Amid the fear. A flicker of kindness. As night falls, you are drawn toward a dim glow and the sound of low laughter. A thatched building leans crookedly at the edge of the village. It's the ale. Inside, warmth rushes to greet you like an old friend. The room is dark but alive. A fire crackles in a stone hearth. The air is thick with the scent of smoke, sweat, old ale, and something vaguely sour. Rough men sit at rough tables, mugs in hand, cloaks steaming from the rain. A boy ladles out weak ale into wooden cups. You sip. It's warm, bitter, barely alcoholic, but it's nourishing. A woman sings a folk tune with a voice like gravel. A hound lies curled beneath your feet, dreaming. Here no one speaks of hardship, or plague, or war. They tell crude jokes, pass bread. It isn't luxurious, but in this cold, hard world, it is sanctuary. You sit by the fire, eyes half-lidded, as the low hum of voices and creaking would blend into a lullaby. The flicker of candlelight dances across stone and shadow, and, for just a while you feel something close to comfort. Outside, the village sleeps. The moon rises behind a curtain of clouds. Owls call from the trees. The chill deepens, and frost begins to gather on the thatched roofs. You hear it in the distance. Dong dong. The bell of Compline, the final prayer of the night, echoing from the chapel tower. It rings not just for the monks, but for all who dwell in the valley, mark the end of labor and the beginning of stillness. You wrap yourself in coarse blankets and lie on your bed of straw. The wall itches. A mouse rustles nearby, but none of it matters now. You've lived a full day in this world. You've walked its muddy streets, heard its voices, smelled its fires, and now you rest as they rested beneath a black sky before the invention of light. No electricity, no engines, no news, just breath, earth, silence, and sleep. As summer turns to autumn, your clothes grow heavier, scratchy layers of wool against your skin. At first, it's just a bit of discomfort, but soon, you start to itch. A persistent, crawling sensation, especially at night. Fleas are the most common culprit, but lice are equally likely. You're not alone. No one is truly clean in the Middle Ages. Bathing is rare, and soap is a luxury. Even lye soap, harsh and caustic, isn't always enough. You try herbal remedies. Crushed rosemary leaves tucked into your collar, lavender oil if you're lucky enough to have it. But the little creatures are stubborn. They burrow into seams, live in your bedding, and refuse to die no matter how often you boil your underclothes. Assuming you even have more than one set. In the village, a woman offers a solution. Burn your clothes in the fire and start fresh. But that means being without for days, maybe weeks. So, like everyone else, you endure it. You scratch, you sweep out the straw in your sleeping corner, and you learn to live with the tickling sensation. Over time, you even grow fond of the smell of rosemary. It reminds you of fleeting comfort in a world that never stops pressing in. And when you finally manage a bath, once, maybe twice a season, the water feels like holy relief. But the itching always returns. Even in dreams, you scratch once a week or maybe once a fortnight depending on the season. The sleepy rhythm of your village breaks into a flurry of activity. It's market day. You wake earlier than usual to the clang of cartwheels and the bleating of sheep being prodded toward the village square. Everyone's here, not just from your hamlet, but from neighboring settlements. The usual quiet paths are churned with boots and hooves. The smell of mud, manure, and smoke thickens the air. You walk cautiously, pockets empty but eyes open. There's color here, for once. A rare patch of red-dyed cloth hanging from a merchant's stall. Glinting metal tools laid out like treasures. Baskets of turnips, dried fish, coarse bread, a few limp apples. Luxuries, if you've only known porridge and root vegetables all week. Bartering, shouting, animals, braying. A pig breaks loose and sprints through the crowd, chased by a red-faced boy. Laughter ripples through the market, then disappears as quickly as it came. You consider trading a few eggs for a hunk of cheese, but a sharp-eyed woman across the stall beats you to it. You hesitate, and the moment is gone. In this world, those who wait often go without. By mid-afternoon, the market quiets. The best goods are gone. You leave with only a turnip and a small cloth bag of salt. Precious enough, but more than goods, the market gave you something rarer. The illusion of choice, of life, beyond survival. And then it's over. It starts with a chill. You wake up colder than usual, your skin hot and your head heavy. Your joints ache. Your throat burns when you swallow. You don't know what it is. No one ever does. It might just be the flux, or a bad chill, or it might be something worse. There are no doctors here, not really. The village healer is an old woman with cloudy eyes who brews foul-smelling teas and ties herbs in bundles above the door. She mutters Latin prayers half-remembered from some longo mass and tells you to drink elderflower boiled with honey and garlic. You drink it, because what else can you do? The fever worsens. You stay in bed, under a heavy wool blanket that smells of sheep and smoke. Time blurs. Sometimes you're awake, sometimes not. You hear voices outside your door. Neighbors wondering if it's catching. You hear your name whispered. Once, you think you hear someone say plague, though it's probably just your imagination. If you're lucky, you sweat through the fever by the third day. You wake soaked, weak, but alive. If you're unlucky, well, people die quietly here. A simple cold can become pneumonia. A wound can turn black and deadly. A stomach ache can mean parasites or worse. You recover, this time, but something changes in you. The knowledge that your body can betray you so suddenly. That health is not a right, it's a roll of the dice. And in this world, the dice are often loaded. From the moment you awoke in this medieval world, religion has been the invisible thread pulling at every corner of your life. The bells of the church tolled not just to mark time, but to remind you that time itself belongs to God. Morning, midday, evening. Each hour belongs to a prayer, even if you don't always stop to say it. Your life, your body, your soul, all are seen through a lens of sin and salvation. You quickly learn that every action is moralized. How you eat, how you speak, how you work, even how you suffer. Misfortune isn't random. It's divine punishment. A failed harvest might be blamed on the village's sins. A child's death may be God's mysterious will. You hear it in the priest's sermons, delivered in Latin, a language you don't understand, but the tone says enough. Fear, obedience, humility. Even your body isn't fully your own. You confess its failings, its thoughts, its secret desires to a man behind a screen. That hunger brings you closer to holiness. That heaven is the prize, but only if you live rightly, and no one ever feels quite sure what rightly really means. There's comfort in it, too. Rituals give rhythm to the chaos. Candles in the dark. Holy days in the middle of toil. Death doesn't feel final here, just another doorway. But make no mistake, religion isn't a private belief. It is law, community, and judgment, all at once. And in this world, it never sleeps. As the sun rises on another damp morning, you sit on a worn wooden stool outside the cottage. The dew clings to your rough-spun tunic, and you no longer flinch at the cold. Your hands are cracked, calloused, but strong. You can split kindling without thinking. You walk barefoot without pain. You eat in silence and listen for the smallest signs of weather in the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rings. The chickens rustle in the yard, and the old woman inside hums a prayer as she stirs the morning gruel. Life continues, as it always has. Slowly, repetitively. But you are no longer the outsider who gasped at the smells or panicked at the lack of plumbing. You've forgotten what it means to be clean in the modern sense. You've learned how to be warm without electricity, full without variety, patient without distraction. You've traded comfort for survival. And oddly, there's something grounding in that. When you look at your reflection in the basin, it startles you. The face is yours, but the eyes have changed. You've lived a dozen lives in these few weeks. You've buried a neighbor, delivered a goat, bled from a splinter, danced at a feast. You've whispered to saints in the dark and bargained with nature under your breath. You came from another world, but now, you are one of them. And as the rooster crows again, you wonder, what if you never went back? You soon realize that news travels fast here, not through letters or phones, but through mouths. Gossip is the lifeblood of the village. A slip of the tongue at the well, a whispered rumor at the bakehouse, or a drunken confession at the alehouse, or ripple through the community by evening. And it isn't just idle chatter. Gossip is a kind of social currency, a weapon, a shield. It protects reputations or destroys them. You hear tales of whose harvest failed, who might be carrying another man's child, who was seen sneaking off after dusk. Some of it is true, much of it is not. But truth matters less than perception here. Being thought of as honest, hardworking, or chaste can be the difference between being helped in hard times or being left to starve. You try to keep your head down, but even silence speaks volumes. People begin to wonder who you are, why you ask strange questions, why you don't know things every child does. You become aware of eyes following you, smiles that don't reach the eyes. You learn the art of answering without saying much, of nodding, smiling, and saying, well, that's the way of it, even when you're not sure what it is. In a world without privacy, where every conversation might be repeated by candlelight, you start to feel how small the village really is, and how tightly woven its web of whispers can become. As the sun dips below the tree line and smoke rises from hearths across the village, you follow the flow of weary laborers. It's not a pub as you might know it, no polished bar, no printed menu, no jukebox in the corner. Instead, it's a low-ceilinged timber building, smoky from a hearth that never stops burning, its walls dark with years of soot and spilled drink. You duck under the threshold and are hit by the heavy scent of sour ale, damp wool, and unwashed bodies. Laughter competes with grumbling. A man sings badly in one corner, while two others argue over land boundaries in another. You find a seat on a rough bench, and someone passes you a wooden mug sloshing with weak ale. It tastes like barley and smoke, with a hint of something sour. Maybe the barrel has turned. Or maybe that's just how it always is. The alehouse is more than a place to drink. It's the social glue of the village. Here, deals are struck, marriages arranged, grudges aired, and stories told. You sit quietly as an old man recounts the time a traveling friar cursed a well. No one questions the tale. It's accepted with nods and murmurs, woven into the fabric of shared belief. As night deepens, the talk grows bawdier. You feel the warmth of the fire on your face, the hum of ancient stories in the air. In this noisy, smoky room, you begin to feel, strangely, a little less out of place. You wake with a pounding head and a stomach that twists with something more than just the previous night's ale. Perhaps it was the water, or the barley gruel, or the strange smell from the alehouse's cheese. Whatever it was, you need help. And in this world, that means a visit to the village apothecary. The apothecary's shop is dim, cluttered, and smells of herbs, dust, and something vaguely. Shelves line the walls, crammed with glass vials, dried flowers, beetle shells, and unlabeled bundles wrapped in twine. A shriveled toad hangs from a string above the door. You step inside, careful not to knock anything over, and explain your symptoms to the woman behind the counter. Thin, sharp-eyed, with hands stained green at the fingertips, she listens without interruption, then nods solemnly and begins to mix. A handful of dried nettles, a pinch of crushed bark, a spoonful of something black and sticky. She offers no explanations, only mutters about humors and balance, then hands you a clay cup of steaming liquid. It smells like forest floor and vinegar. You drink, mostly because she's watching. It burns your throat and coats your mouth in bitterness. She says it will work, eventually. If not, come back. She has leeches, or a charm, or a blessing from the bones of St. Edmund. Medicine here is a curious blend of plant lore, ancient superstition, and guesswork. And while you may not trust it fully, it's all you have. You leave clutching a sachet of dried herbs, half hoping it works, and half hoping you don't need to come back. Not far from the village lies the manor. Not a castle exactly, but the grandest building for miles. It's the domain of the local lord, the one to whom the land, and your labor, ultimately belong. You've seen him from afar, riding past on a tall horse, cloak fluttering, attendants in tow. Perhaps you were summoned to pay a fine, to settle a dispute, or to petition for mercy. The manor house is made of stone, with a timber hole built onto one side. Guards with spears stand lazily at the door. You're ushered inside, into a room that smells of wood smoke, meat grease, and wet wool. Tapestries line the walls, dull and a long table sits at the front where the Lord holds court. He is not a king, not even a noble in the royal court, but in this world, his word is law. He controls the grain stores, the hunting rights, and the land. Taxes are paid to him, and he in turn owes loyalty to someone higher up, a baron, perhaps, or the king himself. But to you, he may as well be the sun. The steward reads your case. The Lord barely looks at you. His decision is swift. A nod, a fine, a gesture, and it's done. You bow back away and leave, aware of your place in the chain of power. One rung above the animals, many rungs below the lords. Still, it's better to have been heard than ignored. As you walk back to your hovel, you realize the manor isn't just a building. It's the spine of the system you now live in. A spine built of oaths, grain, and control. You begin to mark time not in hours, but in seasons. Not with clocks, but with the angle of the sun, the feeling of the wind, and the smells in the air. Spring brings muddy roads, lambs bleating in the fields, and the return of wild greens to your diet. Summer offers sunlight and long days of labor, but also biting flies and sweat-soaked clothes. Autumn smells like damp earth and wood smoke, and you know it's time to gather, to slaughter, to preserve. And winter is hunger, cold, and long darkness. There are no holidays like you remember. The ones that do exist are tied to saints, harvests, and survival. Candlemas, lamas, micha. You don't always know what they mean, but you celebrate them anyway. Because celebration breaks the monotony, the hardship, the aching bones. A jug of ale, a fire in the hearth, a song passed down from a time before memory. And through it all, you change. Your hands grow rough, your back bends, your eyes adjust to gloom. What once seemed horrifying, the lack of privacy, the stink, the superstition, now feels normal, even comforting. And then, one evening, as the stars emerge above the thatched roof, you look around your world. The lowing of cattle, the creak of wood, the murmur of voices by firelight. It's not easy, it's not romantic, but it's life. And somehow, in this strange, brutal world, you've found a rhythm.